everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Gobbledycook. Today I bring to you a classic Bengali dish, Echor chingri kalia. Echor is unripe jackfruit and chingri is prawns. This is a delicious recipe, and when made properly it tastes as good as mutton curry. Without much further ado, let's get cooking. Okay, as a first step, what we need to do is boil the jackfruit. But before that, let me show you what this looks like. Now, my jackfruit came out of a can. It's usually available soaked in some kind of fluid which I drained off. So this is what the pieces look like. I did not get fresh jackfruit in the market, which is why I'm using the canned variety. But if you get the real deal, then nothing like it. Now, jackfruit is a very tough vegetable, so we need to make it tender before we can use it in cooking. Okay, so I'm going to drop the jackfruit pieces in a pot and I'll add enough water to completely cover the pieces. I have about 3 cups of water here, but it really depends on how big your pan is and how much jackfruit you have. Turn on the stove, and now I'm going to add some salt and some turmeric to this water. Slightly give it a stir. Jackfruit has a natural astringent taste, so adding the salt and the turmeric kind of helps to neutralize that flavor. And now I'll just cover it with a lid so that it comes to a boil quickly. But I'm leaving a little gap here, otherwise your liquid can just come rushing out once it starts boiling. So we need to boil it until the jackfruit is tender, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. But here's a bit of interesting trivia. Jackfruit in Bangla is also referred to as gach patha. Literally translated in English, that means tree goat. The reason why it's called is because firstly, its texture, which looks like mutton pieces, and secondly because of its flavor. So if you cook it the way that I'm showing you today, you'll find that it's exactly like having some kind of a mutton dish. Okay, here the water has come to a rolling boil. Let's just see if the jackfruit is tender. You see, I'm having trouble inserting the fork, so I'll say that this is not done yet. So back into the pan, and back goes the cover. Okay, it's been another 5 minutes. Let's check this. Tender. It took about 12 minutes for me today, but it can take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. And you could also do this in a pressure cooker. The reason I don't is because if you're boiling on a stove, you have more control and you can exactly check the tenderness of the jackfruit. And you do not want this to become overboiled or mushy because you want them to retain their bite. Let's drain these out in a container. And we are going to set this aside for later. Now I'm going to dice the potatoes. And as I dice them, I'm going to drop them in this bowl of water here so the potatoes don't get discolored. I'm trying to keep the size of the potatoes the same as that of the jackfruit pieces that I have, so it cooks evenly. Now I'm going to quickly slice an onion. Try to slice these into thin slices so that when they caramelize, they add a nice texture to the curry. And I'll roughly chop a small tomato. The tomato is going to get mushy in the curry anyway, so we don't need to be very particular about how we chop it. Now I'm going to be pounding some fresh ginger root here, and I always add a little bit of salt, which helps the grinding process. Time to pound some garlic now. In Bengali cuisine, typically the amount of ginger used is more than garlic, especially if it is a dish that has vegetables in it. I'm going to roughly chop up some green chilies and then pound them into a paste. On a pan, I'm going to add some mustard oil. The oil is hot. I'm going to add the diced potatoes. also adding some turmeric in the oil. And now I'm going to lightly fry the potatoes. What you're looking for here is a slight golden crust. These are nicely done, so I'm just going to drain them out in a bowl. In the same oil, I'm going to add the boiled jackfruit pieces, and I'll be sauteing these as well. Once again, you're looking for a light golden crust to form. Flip them over from time to time to ensure that they cook uniformly. So you can see that some brown spots have already started forming here. I'm going to take these off the oil and drain it in a bowl. And in the same oil, I'm going to add some shrimps. These are peeled, cleaned and deveined, and I've also taken off the tails. Today I'm using medium-sized shrimps, but you could also use shrimps that are slightly smaller than these, and that tastes good as well. Now if you want to make a vegetarian version of the dish, just skip this step. Do not overcook the shrimp, otherwise it's just going to become rubbery. Now I'm going to add a little more mustard oil to the pan. Once hot, I will add some whole garam masala to this, dry red chilies, bay leaves, cinnamon, green cardamoms, cloves, and some cumin seeds. Just saute them for a few seconds. Now I'll toss in the sliced onions, and I'll just add some salt so that the onions can caramelize faster. We need to brown the onions. So you can see that my onions have started to brown nicely, and at this point I'm going to add some Kashmiri red chili powder. I always try to add it at this stage because it brings out a nice red color in the final dish. So now I'm going to add the ginger paste, garlic paste and our green chili paste. I'll saute this until the raw flavor of ginger and garlic goes away. Now if your spices become too dry, then you can just sprinkle some water on it. Now I'm going to add some dry spices to this, some red chili powder and some cumin powder. Okay, now I'm going to add the tomatoes. We need to cook the tomatoes until they are completely mushy. I've kept the heat on low so that the spices do not burn out. So my spices are completely cooked, and how you can see that is, you can see these tiny droplets of oil that are coming out of this mix. So that tells you that the koshano is done. Now is a good time to add some beaten yogurt. Make sure your gas is absolutely at the lowest point and immediately start mixing it so that the yogurt doesn't split. I'm also going to add some cashew paste and some sugar. Add some salt to taste. Right now it's on a medium-low flame. And what we need to do is cook this until all the moisture evaporates. Okay, here's another interesting fact. In Bengali cuisine, we have two types of curry, dalna and kalia. If you are a Bengali, do you know the difference between the two? Because I sure didn't for a very long time. So dalna is a lighter curry which mostly makes use of ginger, whereas kalia is a far richer gravy and it makes use of ginger, garlic as well as onion. Although it's not a dictionary definition per se, but one thing is certain that kaliyas are really rich and creamy, and you can see that we added things like yogurt and cashew paste to give it that texture, and very commonly kaliyas are made with fish. Make sure that you are stirring this mixture continuously because cashew does tend to burn really fast. So what I essentially did here is that I went through the koshano process yet one more time, And it is this process that brings out all the flavors and texture of this dish. So it's very important to have some patience and slow cook this. I'm going to go ahead and put some hot water in this. I'll mix the water in. See that beautiful red oil that's starting to float on top? Now is a good time to dunk our potatoes in, as well as our jackfruits. Keeping the gas on medium, I will cover this with a lid and cook for about 5 minutes. Do make sure that you are removing the lid and stirring this from time to time, because onion and cashew paste burns really fast, so you do not want to leave this unattended. Okay, it's been about 7-8 minutes and my potatoes are cooked. So now I'm just going to add the cooked prawns. I'm going to mix everything together and cook this in the open for about 5 minutes. This dish has a more thick consistency, something which we call makha makha in Bengali, meaning that the masala should stick and coat the vegetables and the prawns. Okay, my dish is done. As a final step, I'm going to add some garam masala powder. And kalia wouldn't be kalia unless I added some ghee. One final light mix. Turn off the flame, cover with a lid, and just let it rest for 5 minutes before serving with some hot rice.